click.
And
I have clicked it. We're recording.
cool.
And this is the beginning. And I was thinking we should have this so that we're just like having a random conversation. Just some chill music playing so it fades in, kind of like somebody walking into a room.
Okay.
Into a conversation. Just a very comfortable setting, casual. Because after all, this is very informal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, I guess, yeah, this is our first audio-only episode. Technically, it's episode 21,
Mm-hmm.
but for all intents and purposes, for audio platforms, this is the first episode.
I mean, we're probably still gonna...
Utterly Nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably still gonna upload it as, like, Utterly Nonsense episode 21, but, you know, we're gonna have to have audio only in cadences if we're, you know, bringing it onto YouTube. But,
right.
So, yeah, for those of you who are just listening and this is your first time experiencing Utterly Nonsense, we do have a YouTube page which has a lot more material on it. So check us out there. It's just called Utterly Nonsense. Literally the first and only thing that'll come up if you type that into YouTube. So.
Yes, we are one of a kind.
Yeah.
Although you do always get something called Utter Nonsense, which is like a board game or something.
Yeah, which it seems weird to me that they're advertising like this failed board game on YouTube, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll just deny its existence beyond this point.
Yeah.
So for those who are wondering, what do we talk about? Well, things that are nonsense, I suppose. Entertainment related. We were just talking about this earlier. What is our topics? Comics, sci-fi? Do we go beyond that? Well, video games, perhaps?
You know, I'm still cool with the whole nerd culture label. I know you find that borderline derogatory, but, you know, I think that's...
It's just a bit cringy for my taste.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, comics, superheroes, The Flash, if you can consider that. I mean, basically everything on the CW is soap opera by default, or soap opera adjacent, so... I don't know. It all sort of falls under that nerd culture moniker.
True, but you think they would get nerds to write the shows?
No. Instead, they have a room full of women and people of color.
Yes, they have a very colorful, diverse room. Of people who do not like your male characters.
Yes. You can't see my fingers right now. They're in very obvious quotations, air quotes. Diverse.
Yeah.
At a point, you gotta wonder, when you're losing that straight male, you know, voice, is it really diverse anymore, or is it everyone but straight white males? I don't know.
Well, the funny thing is that these kinds of things always have a predominantly male audience and are initially created with that in mind.
Yeah.
And then they start changing it because they said, oh, we want to attract more people. But then I feel like now it's just more about keeping up looks than it is actually attracting a broader audience.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic.
Yeah, I don't know. You got to be careful what you say. You got to be careful what you do. And don't overthink your overthinking.
Yeah. I mean, that...
and that's a little taste of our conversation.
Yeah, I mean... So, I mean, for the future of this podcast, and, you know, this is the thing we've been talking about, but our longtime viewers probably aren't aware of, you know, we're going to try to focus these on a single topic from now on, rather than just, you know, sort of going into a mishmash of, you know, basically going in headfirst with nothing to actually talk about and just talking. So if you haven't read the title of this episode, we are discussing Deadpool 2, which has been out for about 2 weeks now. Yeah.
Yeah, so just sit back and relax while we ruminate about some complete nonsense. What is this? Well, it's definitely not news. It's nonsense. And
I can hear your dogs in the background.
Yeah, we're going to have to mute that out. Just don't use my audio while I'm not talking.
Okay, so...
You don't know how annoying it is. It's every single day. Every freaking day with the dogs. Any little thing, a leaf flies by, a chipmunk.
Literally every time we've recorded this.
Yeah, it's always at this time of night, too.
Yeah.
You take one dog out and they all explode.
Mm-hmm. You know, I miss having dogs, but I do not miss the barking.
Yeah. And, yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so...
I don't know why people get dogs and they're like, oh, my dog is my baby.
I mean...
It's an ugly, drooling monster that makes noise.
I mean, they're so lovable. they'll do anything for you, you know. So are we actually...
Except shut the hell up.
Yeah, so are we actually using a intro for this, or do we just want to dive straight into the topic?
Oh yeah, we completely forgot the intro. I guess we should still have it.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sound weird on a audio-only platform, right?
It's still a killer song.
Okay. Well then, cue up an intro.
Well, now we're back.
Okay, so right off the bat, you know, I ended up putting out a Deadpool 2 poll. I don't know if that was yesterday or today. I kind of lost track of time with it. Truth is, I'm working at my dad's office this summer. Time has no meaning to me anymore. But
oh yeah, forget it. I don't experience time on a linear level.
No,
I'm Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, I mean, just fucking don't get an office job. It's the dullest fucking thing in the world.
I can imagine. My internship taught me that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
See, there's a difference. Imagine having things to do at an office job. Now imagine having nothing to do at an office job. It's even worse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's exactly what I've got. Like, I always get the really shitty, really menial jobs, which, you know, I can't complain about because, I mean, that's what an office job is. You know, I knew what I was going into. But, yeah, fucking dull. Okay, so just to get straight into that whole poll, yeah,
I'm looking at it right now.
I wrote this while I was at work yesterday. So, you know, I wanted to get a few more out, but I have this one main poll just because I wanted to see people's reactions to it. And, you know, we still have a few days active on the poll. By the time we release this episode, I think it'll still actually be open because I set it for a full week.
As of now, May the 31st, it has 42 votes.
Yeah. So
and it's got 5 days left.
So the question is, who was the best new character in Deadpool 2? And when I say new, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Character that was in Deadpool 2 that was not in the first. So, you know, the options I gave were Cable, Domino, Firefist, and Juggernaut, which, I, in my opinion, the four most interesting characters are the four most prominent, aside from, you know, Deadpool himself.
Right.
So, you know, before we actually reveal, like, what the poll numbers are so far, what did you think of each of these characters and of the movie as a whole?
I definitely liked the additions. I think they added to this world of Deadpool because I know there's a whole bunch of scenes where he references the X-Men. You even see him for about a second in a different room. They kind of hint that that the mansion isn't abandoned every time he goes there. They're just avoiding him. But I really feel like he's in his own world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the characters, they add a decent amount to the world. I like how... Okay, let's start with Cable. Where he came from definitely feels like a Days of Future Past kind of thing, like some kind of dystopian future.
Yeah, I know.
Whenever he's on the screen, it feels like one of those Doomsday X-Men movies. He feels like X-Men.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. I will say, right off the bat, I think what they've been doing with the whole timeline, you know, it just speaks to how self-aware the Deadpool movies are. That, you know, like... They're very aware of how fucked up. They're very aware of how fucked up the X-Men timeline is, and the fact that there's no hope of actually fixing it. You know, I do like some of the Easter eggs, like just the very brief snippet of where you see the new X-Men team. You know, the James McAvoy group. And, you know, you I don't know if you picked up on the Quicksilver shirt, like, you know, how he wears a decade-appropriate band t-shirt in every scene he's in.
No, I didn't notice that. I was looking at Beast because I thought he looked like the original Beast from X-Men 3.
Honestly, I can't, like, you know, it's like, I'm very aware of when it's Nicholas Hoult and very aware of when it's Kelsey Grammer, and it's still very clearly the new Beast, you know, as far as I can tell. Yeah, but Evan Peters was actually wearing a Nirvana shirt in that scene, and I mean, logically, it can't be set in the '90s. So I don't know.
No, it can't. And the funny thing is that team is from the '80s, right? Apocalypse was supposed to be in the '80s.
I mean, again, Days of Future Past was set in the late '70s. Like, they've been moving it up, and First Class was set in the '60s. So they've been moving it up a decade with each subsequent movies, even though the characters don't seem to age between movies, you know? So again, that just speaks to how fucked the timeline is, but, you know, so the fact that Deadpool acknowledged that, it's a nice touch. I
don't think there's anything that it doesn't acknowledge, which is the funny thing.
Well, again, it speaks to the self-awareness of the whole thing. The fact that they're not set in a specific time frame, but the fact that Deadpool could sort of exist in every time frame. I don't know, it's an interesting way of approaching the whole cinematic universe dynamic.
Yeah. Because he references pretty much everything from Marvel Studios to other Fox movies that there've been, and DC. Mm-hmm. Every DC, he talks about Green Lantern. He mentions the thing from Dawn of Justice. He basically parodies kind of what we would talk about, how all of these different things come together under one banner. That's kind of like him, except he's making fun of all of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I mean, I will say,
who knows? Maybe he'll appear on this podcast. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Ryan Reynolds has nothing better to do than appear on a podcast between two guys who are barely, or I'm still in college, but I was going to say barely out of college.
I thought you were going to say barely Irish.
Well, yeah, we are barely Irish too. In fact, our leprechaun friend isn't with us right now, so we're really barely Irish.
Yeah.
I mean, I know my dad just got his Ancestry.com results back, and I'm not sure what the actual Irish percentage is because I can't get him to reveal anything. The one thing I did learn from that whole thing is that I'm very distantly Jewish, so... yeah, it's honestly like such a...
Hold on to that.
Exactly. What was I going to say about... I think the opening scene. So, I did see the movie with my whole immediate family, and, my sister is a diehard Wolverine fan, and she's also, like, a teenage girl, so... Yeah, that kind of made her cry instantly. Just the Logan reference.
Oh, yeah. And it was right at the beginning, right? They didn't
stray away from it at all.
Yeah. He's like, what? Wolverine died? I'm going to top that fucker right now. I'm going to die in my movie. It's like, oh, you told us the ending. Okay.
Yeah.
But then he takes like an hour to die.
Well, I mean, that's the thing about the Deadpool movies, like, it follows a very basic plot structure. You sort of know what's going to happen going in. With the first one, it was a very standard 3-act, call to arms, hero's journey type thing. Guy gets the girl, all that shit. Nothing really shocking about the plot. It's just how it gets from point A to point B that really, makes the movie interesting.
Yeah, this one I thought was definitely... I don't know about more complicated than the first one, but it was less focused because he had all these things being introduced, like the kid and what's his name, Cable, and then him forming the team. So they have like all these different kinds of tones being combined because they're in prison, they're in the future. It's a comedy thing, like in Mystery Men, where they're recruiting all these misfits who can do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
I actually talked about that with somebody. You ever seen the movie Mystery Men?
I have not, actually.
There's a scene just like the one where Deadpool and the other guy are looking for team members, where there's just these weird people coming in that don't actually have powers, but they just do something stupid. Like, there's the one guy called the Waffler, and he's like, I can bash the enemy with my griddles of justice, or burn them like so, and I have my truth-telling syrup.
Yeah, I mean, I had an idea for a movie, actually, a few years ago, where it's sort of like an Avengers-style team-up movie, where you have all of these characters coming together from seemingly random locations to fight off some greater evil, but each of the characters has the most useless powers imaginable. So you'll have, like, the main guy, right, who, his greatest ability is that he can turn invisible, right? But he can only turn invisible when no one's looking at him.
No, yep. I feel like that's been done.
See, I've definitely mentioned that before, like just that exact power set. That's like my go-to useless superpower. But
no, that's actually the guy. That's one of the characters in the movie Mystery Men. He has that exact power.
Are you serious? I
yes,
swear, I thought I came up with that. Like, I definitely have not seen or even heard of this movie, you know?
Yeah, there's a guy in there who does just that. And like, at the very end, nobody's looking at him and he actually turns invisible.
Yeah, like Vanisher.
Yep.
Yeah. Another great moment in Deadpool 2 was when it's revealed that Brad Pitt was the actor who brought Vanisher to life.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just a joke because Brad Pitt, but I was like, oh, hey, Brad Pitt.
Yeah, no, I like Brad Pitt.
I had a feeling it would be somebody famous.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, I didn't see that coming in. Like, I knew they were going to make some sort of reveal with Vanisher. Like, they wouldn't just have an invisible character and that be the end of the joke. But, I don't know. It was sort of interesting how they just destroyed the X-Force immediately after introducing them. It's like, you know,
they all get wasted.
I'm not afraid to admit that, like, I'm one of the few people alive who actually enjoyed parts of Suicide Squad. You know, one of my favorite parts from that movie was, you know, the introduction of Slipknot, just to have him killed immediately. And
I actually like that part.
I mean, I was laughing hysterically throughout that. And then Deadpool 2 just puts it to shame, you know?
Yeah, that was the thing. It did kind of feel like a Suicide Squad because they all freaking commit suicide.
Well, is it really suicide? I mean, if it's unintentional, is it really suicide?
Unintentional suicide.
And I mean, I guess it's not like any of them actually kill themselves aside from, like, Peter, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor Peter.
Peter Wisdom. Yeah, I honestly thought that was the reveal they were going for, but
why did you put Peter in the in the list? I would have voted for him.
You know, I was thinking about it, but then I figured maybe I should have characters who have more than 2 minutes of screen time. So,
well, you had a little bit more than that, but
I don't know. Well, you get what I'm saying. Like, he wasn't. Yeah. He was a joke. You know, he wasn't a major part of the movie by any means, even if he was a major part of the marketing towards the end.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually surprised they didn't use him more. I thought he'd be one of the few surviving members of X-Force.
Yeah, I thought it was too. That it was supposed to be, you know, ironic. The one guy who can't do anything actually ends up doing something.
Yeah, so I will say, post-credit scene, just the whole introduction of time travel into the whole thing. Is any of Deadpool 2 going to have any sort of lasting consequences? Or was it just a gag?
Yeah, you know, I kept thinking, okay, they kill off his girlfriend, or fiance, whatever, and maybe they're gonna have her being dead in place of Lady Death.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
He's always trying to get with. I thought it was like, oh, that's what they're going for. But then he just undoes the thing where she dies, and I guess she's alive now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know, I guess we're gonna have to wait for Deadpool 3 or the X-Force, like, actual movie to find out what actually happened with the whole thing. I will say, like, the only members of X-Force that I actually gave a damn about were the ones that survived. So, you know, I could care less either way, or I couldn't care less either way.
Yeah, I like how he only saves Peter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, by extension, I guess they all sort of survive, or he could have saved them all if he wanted to. I don't know. I feel like there was more to the post-credit scenes than I'm making out, or less. Yeah, what else?
I think that point of that scene was just to be funny. I don't even know if it was supposed to be taken seriously.
Yeah. Well,
but then again, it's Deadpool, so you never know.
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't be shocked if they kept Vanessa dead or alive in the next one. I could see it going either way, and I could see them making, or I could see them building on this either way. But yeah. What else about post credits? Anything? I mean, I guess it's sort of.
I like how they did the thing where they kind of inserted him into old scenes from Origins.
Yeah, no, I thought that was pretty kind of funny sight gag.
Done well, because you could see how they freeze framed it, where it's like just showing Wolverine's claw with Deadpool in the background.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a pretty basic editing technique when it comes down to it. Yeah, so if that is canonical, well, first of all, Ryan Reynolds would be dead in the X-Men continuity, but
literally Ryan Reynolds would be dead.
So I mean, is the assuming it did cement, assuming it did take place, whatever happened in the post-credit scene did take place, would that explain why the X-Men timeline is so fucked up? Just Deadpool meandering in the time-space continuum.
Yeah, it could be an offhanded explanation.
Yeah. I don't know. I will, I'm anxious to see Deadpool interact with other characters. I'd love to see Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool in a non-Deadpool movie, just to see if the character can sort of interact with the rest of the X-Men universe.
Well, aren't they supposed to be making an X-Force film or something?
Yeah, but I don't know.
Speaking of which, did you catch the subtle reference to his X-Force costume?
Oh, the X-Men uniform and the X-Men trainee thing with the yellow? Or was there something else?
Oh, no, not even that. I mean, towards the end when I guess he gets burned.
Oh, the
and his
black
costume turns gray.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, subtle reference.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't actually like the gray.
No, I mean, it's too I doubt he's ever going to ditch the pure, vintage red Deadpool costume,
Yeah, maybe he'll put on the jersey again.
I don't know.
Trainee.
I don't see him ever becoming a permanent full-time X-Men member, No. So I guess just to get back to the poll we had, and just based on the
poll from 15 minutes ago, remember that?
Yeah. So
I voted for Cable, but to be honest, I think I'm a little biased because I already knew Cable. And I thought he was just cool.
Well, to be fair, I also voted for Cable, and I actually knew pretty much all the characters except Fire Fist going in. So Domino is leading by a pretty strong margin. It's right now Domino leading by 57%. Yeah. So I'd be anxious to see if Cable can catch up at all. Again, we have 5.5 days left on this, so it's definitely possible.
I can see why people would vote for her rather than Cable.
No, she's an interesting character, and she'd be a close second for me, but I still think Cable's the most, he's a cool character. He has the best interaction with Deadpool. He
has the best new story.
Yeah.
Whereas she's kind of there just as a catalyst for interesting scenes in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically it. She doesn't really have a character. They briefly reference it when she's like, "Oh yeah, I was raised in that school, that orphan school, whatever it was." And it's like, "Oh, okay, so just an extra reason for you to be here, I guess."
Yeah.
And she didn't really need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you did catch that it was the Essex school, right?
Essex. I feel like I know his name because I saw the X-Men cartoon from the 90s.
Mr. Sinister.
Essex. Yes. Yeah. All right.
Real last name of Mr. Sinister. Which, if I remember correctly, they also hinted towards Mr. Sinister being one of the future villains in the Wolverine, the actual classic Wolverine suit that's given to him. And I forget if it was a deleted scene or a post-credit scene, but it was from the Essex Corporation.
I think it was post-credits.
Yeah, so I mean, they've been hinting at the character appearing in the X-Men movies for a while, and just nothing's come of it, so... I don't know. I'd be anxious to see if they ever do anything with him. To be fair, they brought Apocalypse onto the big screen, and he's both a more obscure villain and a more ultra, powerful villain.
Well, in terms of the X-Men world, Apocalypse is one of the main ones, one of the main bad guys.
Yeah, but I mean, if you mention it to a regular, if you mention it to a casual movie watcher, if you do it to someone who's actually got a very base knowledge of the X-Men universe, they're probably not going to know who Apocalypse is, or they probably wouldn't have known prior to.
There's a lot of scrubs
Apocalypse
out there.
Yeah, I don't know. When it comes down to it, Magneto's the big bad, but I feel like they've been inching away from that since the main trilogy.
Oh, yeah. I found it funny how... Do you remember how we had that one clip from a previous episode where you were talking about the analogies of X-Men to, like minorities and then LGBT rights.
Sure.
How Professor X is the Martin Luther King, Magneto's the Malcolm X. Deadpool mentions that exact thing practically.
Yeah. No, well,
like he mentions that the X-Men, who happened to be an outdated analogy to civil rights movement.
Yeah.
He says something like that.
I think that's pretty much exactly what he says. And again, they go, I mentioned that same clip, which again, it's available on our YouTube channel. Go check that out. If you are watching this on YouTube, we will have a link for that somewhere in the description below. Yeah, so I did mention it could apply to a number of civil rights movements. Obviously the current LGBTQA movement, where I don't even know if you can call it current, just because as soon as same-sex marriage became legalized, the movement sort of lost any momentum it was going for.
Yeah, it was pretty much.
I mean, that was sort of the culmination of their whole efforts. The same way that the Civil Rights Act was the culmination of the civil rights movement of the '60s. Although if you read the news, you might be led to believe otherwise. Yeah, well, again, it's, I don't want to get into that because, it's sort of off topic and it deserves an episode of its own.
This is not news, it's nonsense.
Yeah, so, the LGBTQA rights movement didn't have the same sort of leadership that the civil rights movement had. It didn't have the same sort of opposing viewpoints. It was a lot more united in that way. But, they definitely hint at mutants being an allegory for the LGBT rights movement in the original X-Men trilogy. There's a line in X-Men 2, have you tried not being a mutant?
Yeah, that was more current with the early 2000s.
And again, it's the most cliched thing that someone could say to someone who comes out as gay, So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely got that sort of vibe throughout history. It's definitely being used for a civil rights allegory. So I think we've sort of beaten that topic to death.
Yeah, and once Deadpool parodies it, it's the end.
Mm-hmm.
He's the last stop for all jokes. That's one thing I thought about this movie, was that they really tried hard to get as many jokes as possible. They didn't stop for a minute.
Yeah, and yet it sort of worked. It didn't feel rushed or anything.
I guess. The main thing was, when I watched it, I was like, yeah, okay, I liked it. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as when I watched the first one, because this one just basically tries to recreate the feel of the first one, but do it a little bit more excessively.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like, oh yeah, I've seen this before, and this isn't... It's not bad, it's good, but it's like... It's just the same thing, so...
Right.
I
mean, just to make a long review short...
which I expected.
I definitely expected it to be more or less a copy of the first one. I expected it to have the same sort of energy to it. A couple things I will say. I think it was better well-directed than the first one. I do like David Leitch a little more than Tim Miller. And, I think, it definitely does have the same momentum as the first one. It feels more like a continuation on the first one than, its own original sort of standalone film. And in many ways, I think that's what a sequel should do. And, you have so many trilogies where the second movie is the clear weak one, the clear drop-off point. And for me, Deadpool 2 did not disappoint. It was not a Iron Man 2. It was not a what's another good analogy? Winter Soldier. I mean, you probably would disagree with me on that one.
I don't think anyone would say Winter Soldier was.
Well, again, for me, that was the weakest of the
say
trilogy. What's another?
People always say that the first one is the weakest. I was like, but I liked the first one. It was great.
What, in Captain America? No,
yeah.
First Avenger was the best one of the three. Oh, Avengers. That's another one. Age of Ultron was the clear weak one in that trilogy. Quadrilogy, if you consider Avengers 4 to be its own thing. So for me, Deadpool 2 just sort of had its own... It was a continuation, it was a sequel, but, it did everything a sequel should do.
Yeah. Stepped it up, ramped it up. I think another good example of this, some people might not agree because opinions, but I have the best opinion, believe me.
Mm-hmm.
Expendables 2 from 1, to me, just ramped up everything in the first one and brought in more people. And I thought they were all brought in well, fine and good, dandy. Because they had the original team minus, like, what, Mickey Rourke? And then you have Arnold, and then Bruce Willis gets a piece of the action.
Right.
So it was all good.
Yeah, I mean, I only saw the first one.
Then 3 just kind of went overboard.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've been talking for about half an hour now, and we try to cut these down to about half an hour. So if we have...
Has it really?
Yeah, I mean, we're almost at the 30-minute mark, according to my recording. So if you have anything else to add it. Otherwise, I think now is a pretty good stopping point. So...
I probably had something else to add, but forgot it over the course of yapping about nonsense.
Yeah. Okay, so, this has been Utterly Nonsense. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of the places where you might follow someone or something or a brand.
And now, if we get these up in time, perhaps even on iTunes and SoundCloud for free.
Yeah.
Download it. Take it with you wherever you want. Listen to our voices.
Maybe listen to us. Maybe listen to us on your daily drive to work, or if you're just trying to kill some time.
The drive at 5 on 103. No, never mind.
Yeah, we all know you've got some monotonous office work to do. Why not listen to two assholes talk for half an hour or so?
Yeah, or do like I do whenever you're grinding through a tower in Injustice 2, and it's so boring, but all you want to do is get that damn gear piece. You got to put something on to distract yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
People who play the game will understand. It's so much grinding.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll talk video games next time.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Well, this has been Utterly Nonsense.
Okay, awkward pause, ending, credits time, roll that damn 8-bit outro.
Not how I'd phrase it, but yeah, roll.